Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Today we're going to be discussing the last deck that we have to discuss out of V-BT08, which is Silverdust Blaze. Basically we're going to be talking about the Focused Grandgallop deck. Now, this deck is going to be a little bit interesting or a little bit different from the other 4 FutureFights that I have done out of this set, because this deck is just really weird. Like, there's a bunch of different ways that you can build it, but there's no really clear-cut way that you should build it. So I actually built 2 versions of the deck that I feel like are decent, but I didn't really know what direction that I should be going, because Grandgallop, as far as its conditions, are really hard to reach by itself, just because of the way that Bushiroad made the deck and the cards that support it. So we came up with 2 deck lists, so I'm going to show you guys both deck lists. So this video is going to be a little bit longer than a usual FutureFight, because I'll be showing you guys 2 deck lists and then 2 games with each of the 2 deck lists. So there will be 4 games total. But this video is already going to be long, so let's get right into it. If you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below. Click the bell button so you don't have to miss any future videos from us going forward. Be sure to leave a like on the video and comment down below letting me know your thoughts. And definitely, you know, for this video, let me know your thoughts on this deck or how you build it, because I was definitely confused. Like, this was definitely the hardest deck to figure out how to build out of this set. So I'm definitely interested in knowing how other people build the deck, or, you know, if you're playing D-Police, how you go about it. Also, shout out to my friend Jonathan Howard, or short for John Howard. He's a D-Police main that lives in Philadelphia, and he was a former teammate of mine, and he really helped me kind of formulate some ideas for this before I reached the conclusions that I did. So shout out to him, because this video would have been, or the data for this video would have been a lot longer to obtain had it not been for the little pieces of advice that he gave me. Also, be sure to check out my second channel if you guys are interested in anime, animation, or video games. Let's Plays Animes, down in the description down below. Also, click out that join button if you guys are interested in all the future like little things that we're going to have going on with the channel. It's mainly for support, but there will also be cool things to give back to you guys, like free sleeve giveaways and card giveaways and contests and stuff like that. So definitely be sure to click that join button if you guys want to support. If that's something that interests you, do that. Also, last thing, be sure to check out our Twitch at LPA Empire. I'll be streaming Cardfight Vanguard stuff, Digimon stuff. You'll be able to see our cute little Gabumon more often as we get a little bit more into the Digimon card game. And then I'm also going to be doing stuff for my other channel on there as well, video games and anime and all kinds of cool stuff. So go drop a follow to that Twitch account if you guys would. Yeah, just be on the lookout for when we are streaming. But with that being said, we got all that information out of the way. Let's get right into our 2 deck list here. So today we are talking about Grandgallop. So this deck is so weird as far as the D-Police deck goes, because usually D-Police, they're kind of like their gimmick is that based on how much power a D-Police unit has, it usually gets some effects, or the rear guards get some effects based on power. But they took a strange detour with Grandgallop, and they decided to make it based on the unit's critical, on your Vanguard's critical, for it to gain effects. So it made it really weird, because you have to run a bunch of cards that basically gave critical instead of power. And so it's weird because you want to go Force 2 to give critical to your Vanguard, but then you also have no power because you're lacking power. So we hopefully came up with some deck lists to supplement that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed these deck lists, because I definitely had a really hard time making them, and they probably still need some tweaking. But I think that they're okay for now. But let's get into the grade 3s of the first build. So the first grade 3 is obviously our Great Awkward Hero himself. And I'm saying Great Awkward Hero instead of Great Cosmic Hero because this is an awkward card. But this is Grandgallop himself, so let's talk about his abilities. So the first 2 abilities are Vanguard only, or the only 2 abilities I should say, are Vanguard only. The first ability is when it attacks, activate all of the effects below according to this unit's critical. So if it has 2 or more critical, all your front row rear guards get plus 5,000 power. If it has 3 or more critical, all your front row rear guards get plus 10,000 power. And then if it has 4 or more critical, all of your front row rear guards get +1 critical. So if you have 4 more critical, you do get the other effects as well. So it's not exclusive, so you don't get 2 or 3 or 4. You can get 2 and 3 and 4 if you have 4. So if you have 4, ideally your rear guards will be getting +15k and a crit when Grand Gallop swings. However, getting Grand Gallop to 4 crit can prove somewhat of a difficulty at times. So it can be we run a bunch of cards to give crit, so that we try not to make that as much of a problem. However, it makes attack order weird and all kinds of stuff. But you guys will see that when we get into the games and the other cards. But it has a second Vanguard ability that says once per turn, if you counterblast 1, this unit gets +1 critical. So you can automatically, by going Force 2 and counterblasting 1, you can automatically get to the 3 requirement, which will give your rear guards +15k. So that's very, very good. Moving on to our second grade 3. This is purely a grade 3 that's good on rear guard circles, so you guys want to be on Grand Gallop the entire time if you guys can help it. However, this card does have Force, so if you have to ride it, it's not a complete like doo-doo, play. But we have 4 Battlefang Hell Tiger. So a Hell Tiger is actually a promo that D-Police has that says at the end of the battle that this unit attacked while boosted, if you have a Vanguard with Cosmic Hero in its name, you can Soul Blast 1 and stand this unit. So awkward thing about this deck as well is that there's no real way to account for all the different things that you need to do. And one of the things that I skipped out on when I was building this deck is I skipped out on a way to get soul in this deck. And so you need to be very, very careful how you use your soul. So when you use like double Hell Tiger or more than one Hell Tiger, it is very difficult to try to figure out what you're going to do once you have 0 soul. But hopefully from there you have your opponent in a scenario where it's hard for them to block a normal attack anyways, so you've done what you needed to do already. But this card is able to restand, and ideally you want to combine this card with Dimensional Robo Diejacker, because basically Diejacker will boost Hell Tiger, and basically Hell Tiger will be able to restand instantly, and then Diejacker will retire itself and give your Vanguard a critical. So what that does is that makes it so that your Vanguard reaches that 4 crit requirement if you didn't have a Grandvolver, and then also your rear guard will still be able to attack. So you're not missing out on a rear guard attack because of it, because there are no stand triggers in standard. So you need to find other ways to restand your rear guards, obviously. So moving on to our grade 2s, we have 4 Dimensional Robo Die Dragon. We really just ran this card for the second ability, not the first ability, because the first ability costs a Soul Blast, and like I told you guys, you need to be very careful with how you use your Soul Blast, and it is just absolutely not worth to Soul Blast to have your Vanguard get +5k. There's nothing going on in this deck that will ever really be worth for you to do that. So Die Dragon skills is Vanguard Rear Guard. Once per turn, Soul Blast 1 and one of your Vanguards gets +5,000 power until the end of the turn, which we pretty much never use that ability in this build. And then the second ability is continuous on the Rear Guard circle. If your Vanguard's power is 35,000 or greater, this unit gets +10,000 power. So hopefully with Twin Order in the deck, this other promo that D-Police has, your Vanguard can reach very high numbers, and then that will make your Die Dragon reach some higher number columns as well. Next up, we have 4 Cosmic Hero Grandvolver. So Grandvolver is directly Grand Gallop support. So when it's placed on Rear Guard Circle, you can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, and then this unit gets +10,000 power. And then if you are on Great Cosmic Hero Grand Gallop, then you draw a card, and one of your Vanguards gets a +1 critical until the end of the turn. So just another way to get that that 4 crit requirement that is required to do your full Grand Gallop play. And then also is yet another card that costs soul, so again, be wary of your soul. If you guys want, you can even replace 2 of these Grand Rope with 2 of the Dimension Robo card that goes in the soul and draws you a card when Vanguard hits. I'm forgetting what it's called right now, but that is a great way to gain soul, and I only thought about it after doing the all the data for this deck. So definitely you can replace those if you'd like. But yeah, just to get you guys a little bit more soul. So moving on to our next grade 2, we have 3 Quick Hero Active Mask. So what Active Mask does is essentially serves the same purpose as Hell Tiger. It's just a little bit worse because it has a power requirement, which we might not always reach that threshold. However, when our Vanguard attacks, if our Vanguard has 30,000 or greater power, then you can actually counterboss 1 and restand Active Mass. So again, Active Mass serves the same purpose as Hell Tiger, except it costs a counterblast, which is better than costing a Soul Blast for sure. So you definitely want to pair Active Mass with Dijacker just to reach that 4 crit requirement on Grand Gallop. And then you can restand Active Mask, hopefully, because you had a Twin Order or something like that, that gave you a bunch of power, and it made the threshold of Grand Gallop over 30,000 power, which means that you are required to pretty much have 2 Force Markers with 1 Twin Order effect. Or you can just have 2 Twin Orders. But either way, when you get this off, you can restand it, and you'll be able to get the full abilities to your rear guard. So that's really, really cool. Then for our grade 1s, moving into our grade 1 lineup, we have 4 Dimensional Robo Die Scooper. So Die Scooper is pretty much a way to ensure that we get to our grade 3s. And we have a lot of ways to get grade 3s in this deck, just because you don't ever want to ride Hell Tiger. Like, it's just really bad. You always want to have Grand Gallop and even additional Grand Gallops, because you want to be able to re-ride. 1, to get more Force Markers for Twin Order, but 2, so that you can get more Soul while still being on Grand Gallop. And one of the best ways to get Soul is re-riding. So you definitely want to get a lot of, make sure that you get as many Grand Gallops as possible to your hand. And so Die Scooper's skill is when it's rode upon. So basically, when you have this card on your Vanguard as your grade 1 ride, and then you ride grade 2 over it, you can look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 from among them, and put it into your hand. So free +1, and especially good if that card that you got was Grand Gallop. But if you also already had 2 or more Grand Gallops in your hand, then you can go for getting a Hell Tiger, and it's just as good of a play, just to ensure that you're set up. Going for our next grade 1, we have 4 Dimensional Robo Dijacker. So we talked about this card a lot when it comes to Active Mask and Hell Tiger. But after this, at the end of the battle that this unit attacked or boosted, then you can retire this unit, and one of your Vanguards gets +1 critical until the end of the turn. So obviously important that this card cannot be boosting your Vanguard for full effectiveness, because Grand Gallop activates on attack, which means that the timing of these cards would not, they would like mismatch. Basically, Dijacker would give your Vanguard a crit after it is, after it's relevant. So you definitely want to attack with a rear guard with this, which is why you need rear guards that restand so that they can gain the full effectiveness of Grand Gallop, giving them power and crit. Moving on to our next grade 1, we have 4 Twin Order. This is another promo card for D-Police, and it is an amazing promo card at that. This deck might not even function the way that it's supposed to without Twin Order, so I think you definitely need 4. But Twin Order's rear guard ability is when it boosts, one of your Vanguards gets plus 10,000 power until the end of the turn for each one of your Force Markers that are present on the board. So if you have 2 Force Markers and this unit boosts, you're giving your Vanguard plus 20, which is an easy power threshold to be passing, for Die Dragon and Active Mass. So pretty good. Then rounding out our grade 1 lineup, we run 2 Kagero Grand Rope as another way to search grade 3s. So like I said, we are foregoing this in this build for more soul gain, but you guys can run that other D Robo card that goes to soul and draws you a card for more soul gain if you would prefer that to getting your grade 3. I preferred going this when I initially built this build, because I never ever wanted to be on Hell Tiger. Like, that's like the worst fate. Like, it does nothing, and your whole deck kind of just flip-flops because there's like a bunch of cards that are reliant on you purely being on Grand Gallop. So you definitely want to get to Grand Gallop when you are playing this deck, or it is kind of poo-poo. So Grand Rope's abilities are on the rear guard circle. During your turn, if you have a grade 3 or greater unit, this card gets plus 5,000 power, so it becomes a 13k attacker or booster. Pretty good. And then this is our search a grade 3 copy clone. So basically, when placed from hand, Vanguard, rear guard, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 card from among them, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck, and then if you put a card, discard a card from your hand. So obviously, if you did not get to ride a Die Scooper, riding Grand Rope, especially when you go second and you have a quick shield to this card, is just as good. So for our starter, we run Metalborg Black Boy, because, like, come on, look at me, Black Boy. But anyways, this is the best D-Police starter. If you're not running this starter, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. But anyways, the Metalborg Black Boy is just like every other starter that we have in the game. Allows you to draw a card when you ride upon it, and then if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 1 or greater, then you also get a quick shield to be able to do with whatever you please, whether that be an early shield for you or a discard target for one of your card abilities. So then for our triggers, we run 6 crit, 6 draw, and 4 heal, which is a very important balance to this deck. You do need pieces more than anything in this deck, and that is why we run more draw triggers, and this deck kind of brings the offensive pressure on its own, which is why we're able to cut some crit triggers as well. So for our crit triggers, we run 2-dimensional Robo Die Battles, 2-dimensional Robo Die Racer, 2 Justice Cobalt, 4 Diamond Ace, which is our Sentinel Draw Trigger PG, 2 Beast Fur Monster Momomosia, and then 4 Cosmic Hero Grand Rescue. So that is deck 1, and then for deck 2, I'm actually going to just not go over the same cards that we just talked about, but only the new cards that are in addition to the build. So getting into deck 2 is very similar to deck build 1 with a couple of changes. So we have Grand Gallop, which we already talked about, and then we have the backup grade 3 for this deck, which is actually Black Dressed Outstanding Deity Blad Black. So Blad Black, especially for English people, English meta people, we actually don't have Hell Tiger yet in the English meta, so you could just run this build because we do have Blad Black, because that is actually a card that came out of the set. But this card is also like very, very adept at kind of getting you 2 Grand Gallop, and then also sets up 2 Force Markers really, really easily. So with its first ability, you can counter boss 1 and 3 of your front row units get plus 10,000 power, which synergizes really, really well with not only Die Dragon, but also Active Mask, because you are getting, you know, a bunch of power. It's just really, really good synergy for those cards, especially along with Twin Order. And then also, its other Vanguard skill is at the end of the battle that it attacked, look at the top 7 cards from the top of your deck, get 1 grade 3 card from among them, put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. And then if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can discard 2 cards, ride a grade 3 card other than Blad Black, so you would be riding Grand Gallop. And then that unit gets plus 10,000 power and minus 1 drive. So very, very important. There's like a lot of good things about this card. Obviously for the second ability, we talked about the synergy of the first ability, but the second ability is really good because even if you don't choose to do the re-ride, you're still getting a free grade 3 to your hand, and you're getting a free grade 3 search from top 7. So if you did not have the grade 3 to ride before, to do, you know, certain stuff before, now you do. You can ride Blad Black and then go into Grand Gallop, or you can just ride Blad Black and just ride, like get another Blad Black, and then the next turn ride Blad Black again, and then try to go into Grand Gallop. Another thing is it doesn't require you to ride the grade 3 that you get. You can ride any grade 3 that you have in your hand, which means that you can already have the grade 3 and then still be able to use Blad Black's ability while adding a grade 3 to your hand. So very, very good. And yeah, not much to be said other than that. Obviously, we still want to go Force 2 because after we ride down to Grand Gallop, we're not going to be able to give it crit, except if we have like a Die Jacker present or something like that, like 2 Die Jackers, because obviously Grand Volver is during the main phase, something that you want to play during your main phase, so you obviously won't be able to do it when you're using Blad Black and Grand Gallop in the same turn, but you will be able to use Die Jacker, so just kind of play carefully. I really doubt that you're going to be able to get the full 4 crit effectiveness off of Grand Gallop on the same turn that you do Blad Black, but it is possible if you have 2 Die Jackers and Force 2, so be aware of that. These other cards we already talked about: Grand Volver, 4 Grand Volver, 4 Die Dragon, 3 Active Mask, 4 Die Scooper, another way to get grade 3s, 4 Die Jacker, 4 Twin Order, and then this build is the card that I was talking about in the other build that you can substitute Grand Rope for. We actually just ran 2-dimensional Robo Die Brave, and we really, again, just like Die Dragon, we don't run it for its first ability, but more so the second ability. So Die Brave's first ability is Vanguard Rearguard once per turn, Soul Blast 1, and one of your Vanguards gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So we are not really using that at all unless it's really crucial that for some reason we make a 5k guard stage change. But I can't really ever see a scenario like that coming up unless you know that your opponent's about to die, unless you don't do this. So Die Braves for that, and then also when your Vanguard's attack hits a Vanguard, then you can put this unit to your soul and draw a card, which fuels your soul and also gives you additional advantage. which is very, very solid. Again, for our starter, we're running Metalborg Black Boy. You know what I'm saying? And then we're actually running a more aggressive trigger lineup for this build because we are trying to kill our opponent very, very quickly with Black and Grand Gallop. And so basically we run 4 Die Battles, 2 Die Racer, 2 Justice Cobalt, 4 Diamond Ace, which is our Sentinel PG again, and then 4 Cosmic Hero Grand Rescue. So we're running 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 heal there. So loading up our games here, we're going to load up Grand Gallop Game 1. And the Game 1, we're actually playing against Aquaforce. This seems to be the new Lambros deck, so this is far ahead in the future, so you guys don't have to worry about this necessarily yet, but it is a good little sneak peek into the future of what you'll be dealing with if you are a D-Police player. So our opponent rides and attacks us for 8. We were actually able to ride Die Scooper, so we checked top 7 for a grade 3, and then we actually get the Hell Tiger, so this is the first build, as you guys can see. And then we go for a Die Dragon, we attack. Our opponent blocks that, and then our opponent attacks with Terrific Coil, which we take. We ride into Grand Gallop, going Force 2. And then we were thinking here, as this is the first time that we're playing the deck. Obviously, you guys know that with all my future fights, it is pretty much my first time laying hands or eyes on the deck, so there's a lot of thinking to be had, but that's why these recordings are sped up for you guys. So we use the Vanguard Act of Grand Gallop, and then we use the skill of Grand Volver, and so basically Grand Gallop is at 4 crit. And then we use Grand Rope to place behind Vanguard. We do get a grade 3 card, and then we just discard our 5k draw trigger because we want to keep our grade 3s, and then we go for playing Die Jacker on the rear guard circle. So I actually didn't have to go for using Die Jacker's skill here because I didn't realize that Grand Gallop was already at the 4 crit requirement. I only realized this after my opponent was like 5 crit, and I was like 5 crit, no 4 crit. And then I counted it, and I was like, oh, 5 crit. So basically, he would have died in 1 shot if he just took this. But obviously, he's not going to take that 26, you know, he can't block that. So he does go for a G-Assist, unfortunately. And then he G-Assists and does not get Thavis. So he just says GG, he scoops it up because he doesn't think that he will be able to win going forward with the next turn. So that actually was Grand Gallop Game 1. So Grand Gallop Game 2, we're playing against the same Aquaforce player, I believe. So we put out our Black Boy. And then we have a decent starting hand. So our opponent actually rides Nikki, looking at the top 7 for a Thavis, which he does get. And then we ride Twin Order, we attack. Our opponent no guards, we check a Hell Tiger, he checks a Terrific Coil Dragon. Our opponent rides Agius, and then uses the skill of Dennis to call a card off top. And then he calls a Thavis. So we block the first attack, we take the Thavis. We ride Die Dragon, and then we just attack in a Vanguard, which he no guards. He takes another damage. And then he rides Thavis, so he did go first this time, which is very, very good for him. And then he uses a bunch of skills that I was not familiar with, but he uses Light Signals Penguin to get 5k here. He uses Thavis skill to rest. And then he used Dennis skill, I think, to rest and call a card. And then he calls Lambros to the rear guard circle. And then he uses the skill of Thavis at the beginning of the battle phase to go into Lambros. So Lambros gets +1 drive. And then he attacks for 33. And me, you know, having never read these cards, I was like, wow, these cards are wild. This card's broken. But apparently, you know, Lambros is not that good, what I'm being told after recording this. But he put me to 5 damage, so it's pretty good to me. But we rode into Grand Gallop. And then we go for Grand Gallop's activation skill. We place down Hell Tiger, and we place down Grand Volver. So I'm actually just having a casual chat with my opponent here about how good Thavis is. And again, I didn't have to do Die Jacker here, but I did anyways for some reason. It was kind of a waste with Hell Tiger because, again, we're supposed to be conserving our Soul Blast. So we should have just went for the 4 crit. But our opponent guards for a no pass. And then we do check a draw trigger, putting the power to Hell Tiger. And then we attack for 38 to crit. And then our opponent proceeds to guard that with 3 grade 1s. And then we attack for 43 to crit. And then our opponent takes that. Our opponent rides another Thavis. And I pretty much knew from the first turn of him doing stuff that, like, I was ultra super dead when he goes into Lambros, especially since he has, like, buku, you know, Excel circles. He uses Penguin to rest to give 5k to its Dennis. He uses Nikki skill to rest and put a normal unit on the bottom, and that's how he recycles his Lambros. So he gets Lambros, he rides it, and then Lambros stands everything until he attacks me for 19 here, which we actually take because I was like, oh, I'm so dead. So I actually hit a heal trigger on the first attack of the turn. So obviously, if you guys know anything about the Force Excel matchup, if you hit a trigger on the first defensive, it makes things way better than it should be. So we PG the Vanguard. He does check a PG, and then a grade 2 and a grade 1. He goes for a 13 to our rear guard. He attacks us for 29, which we guard. And then he attacks us for 32, which we guard. And then he passes the turn. And then here, as you guys can see, we counter boss 1 to give crit, and then we use the skill of Grandvolver to get that 4 crit requirement. We call out our Hell Tiger and we call out Diejacker. We attack for Grand Gallop, giving 15k and a crit to our rear guards. And unfortunately, like I was saying, like you guys can see, this is just a lowly 13k. So unfortunately, I wish it was bigger, but it's not. We do check a heal trigger though, going down, and then we attack for 35. Our opponent blocks with the intercept and the heal. Then we attack for 46, which our opponent PGs. Ironically, if our opponent did not have that PG, we might have killed him anyways. But he uses the skill of his Thavises to retire some of our cards. He uses the skill of Dennis to call that front trigger. And then he uses the skill of Nikki to recycle his Lambros. Looks at top 5 for grade 3. And then he plays another Light Penguin Soldier, gets 5k to his Thavis. And then he plays down this Narissa. Just so they can get some advantage. So this turn, we're actually super duper uber dead. And then basically that was the game. So after this is when I decided to come up with this second Grand Gallop build, because I figured that the first one wasn't, you know, all the bee's knees or all the rage or whatever. So third game, we're actually playing against what seems to be Blade Master. So we're actually going second. Our opponent rides Garen and passes turn. We ride Diejacker and attack. Our opponent no guards and checks a critical trigger. Our opponent draws for turn and rides Frema. And then we no guard. We do damage check a Grand Gallop, which is kind of bad, but we go for riding Die Dragon. And then we just attack for 10 because I wanted to save the other rear guards that I had, and I felt like they might get retired. So we do check a crit, which is really good to put him into those stages where he has to be scared now. So he does go to Shine Bardiche Dragon, Soul Blast 1, look at the top 7 for a Dragonic Blade Master, which he does get. And then he puts it into his hand, shuffles his deck, and it gets plus 5k. So then he attacks us for 18 3 crit. Which we no guard because I wanted to have a bunch of damage for the play that I was about to do. So he does check no triggers. I also was like, hopefully I check a trigger, so I avoid his Shine Dragon. And then we did check a draw trigger, so that was perfect. We go into Black, and we do Force 2 on the Vanguard. And so we actually go for Twin Order here. So we counter boss 1 with Black, and we give the front row plus 10. So we go for 20. To Vanguard. He guards with 2 5Ks. We go for 28 with the boost, and Twin Order because we have 1 force marker gives 10k power. And that was very important here because these active masks, in order to restand, needed to have that 30k threshold. So he actually no guarded our Vanguard, and we checked a crit, which made the attack 3 crit. I guess he chose not to PG because he wouldn't have been able to block an active mask and then an active mask with a crit. So I guess he just chose to take a chance and no guard Vanguard, but then that ended up being the wrong option because he ended up dying for it. So loading up our last and final Grandgallop game, we're playing against the same guy, Mr. Galaxy Raccoon. Shout out to you, wherever you are, whoever you are in the world. You've made it onto the video. But we actually go second again, and we ride Twin Order. We get a draw trigger, and we draw. And then he rides Berserk Dragon, and coincidentally does not use the skill to draw a card. I was very shocked. But then he did check a crit, so maybe he planned it that way the whole time. It was calculated. So then we go for playing multiple Die Dragons because we don't really care about them. And so we play, we attack, he doesn't get a trigger, and then we attack with our other Die Dragon. He blows a Firma from his hand, so that's good. We just blew some shield from his hand, so we wanted shield or damage. We got what we wanted. He goes for riding Soin, and then he goes for Force 2 on the rear guard circle. He discards 2 cards after playing Doha and Garon to board wipe us and then call a Vision token, which proceeds to get 10k to Vanguard and Division token because of Soin. So we no guard Vanguard, we take 2 damage, and then he attacks for 23 with Twin Drive. And because it has 2 damage already, we decide to go ahead and 2 to pass that because we didn't want to waste the PG in our hand in case he checked a crit for the Doha column because it was going to be guard restricted and we would have died. Basically, if we had dropped RPG for that attack and then he checked a crit. Thankfully, he didn't, so we got to save RPG. But we rode Gallop here instead of riding Black Black. And then we went for Grand Volver. And then we used the skill of Grand Gallop. Then we called Grand Volver again, used the skill again. And then we called a Twin Order. So we attack with Twin Order. We use the skill of Grand Gallop to get plus 15k and a crit to our rear guards. And then we attack for 5 crit. Our opponent instantly PGs that upon hearing that. And, you know, who wouldn't? So we attack for 2 crit. Our opponent no guards. It does hit a draw trigger on defense, which is kind of unfortunate. But yeah. Our opponent rides the original Blade Master after this. And then discards 2 and gets a Vision token and board wipes us. And so, because our hand was so bad, like, it was very difficult to try to guard my way out of this, but we did guard for a 2 to pass with a crit trigger. And then when he attacked for 18 with 2 crit, we guarded with a quick shield and a 5k for a 1 to pass, so we survived by the skin of our teeth there, and then we just saved this PG so that we could use it for the guard restrict. And so now we ride Black Black, which is pretty much our only choice because Grand Gallop wasn't going to do us any favors that turn. So we actually attack for 23. So we check a critical trigger, and he actually 2 to passes us, and we check a crit trigger and a draw trigger, and we place it all to Vanguard, which ends up getting us through that game. But that was pretty much the only way that we were going to get through there. I think like we were definitely going to lose the next turn after that. I don't know why he didn't just PG this, but I guess he assumed that after when if we were to do a re-ride and then it was Grand Gallop, like it would have been harder to deal with. So maybe he wanted to save the PG for the rear guard after it got, you know, power from having critical, so on and so forth. So, you never know. I don't know. He 2 to passed us, and we, like a sack, all Vanguarded. But that has been the FutureFight Vanguard video for Grand Gallop. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like I said earlier in the video, be sure to leave a like down below and comment down below letting me know what your builds are for this. Like I said, I'm super interested in knowing what you guys' builds are for this because this deck is very, very awkward to build. And for me, a person who prides myself on deck building, I'm stumped for the first time. Like, I'm like, Bushiroad, why did you do this? Like, why did you make the deck this way? It seems like none of the cards really work with the cards that were already out. But, you know, that is none of my business because I don't play D-Please, not really. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, be sure to check out my second YouTube channel, Let's Plays Animes, if you're interested in anime, animation, or video games, and check out our Twitch, LPA Empire, and check out that join button if you want to support this channel even further. But with that being said, this has been Cardfight Empire, aka Josh Stallworth, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.